My name is Risa Waverly, 34 years old. We're doing Christmas without you, my mom texted. 10 words arranged like a closing door, a tidy bow of, hope you understand, love mom, looped on top as if kindness could be copy-pasted. I watched the typing bubbles bloom and die, then set the phone face down on the desk where a spreadsheet blinked at me like a patient I no longer intended to revive. There wasn't shock left in me. Whatever shock is turns into something colder when you've been auditioning for your own family for years, and the role goes to silence. They had always pictured a version of me with softer edges and agreeable Sundays. Church every week, marry young, stay home, bake, nod. I did none of it. I raised 2 girls, Ava and Lily, on my own terms, clocked the hours, paid the bills, skipped the fundraisers, stopped volunteering to hold coats for parties I wasn't invited to. When I withdrew from performance, they called it betrayal. They liked my help, not my boundaries. I didn't answer the text. I packed a bag. Ava chose the book with the broken spine. Lily held her sparkly shoes to her chest like talismans. We drove to a cheap winter cabin near Flat Rock where the lake lay under glass, and a single strand of porch lights clicked on at dusk like the place remembered joy. We baked cookies that slumped sideways, burnt the first log in the fireplace, wrapped dollar store gifts in paper with candy canes that bled when you breathed on them. The girls believed we were in a movie. I decided we could be. On Christmas morning, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. There they were, 21 people in matching red and black pajamas, gifts stacked like a stage, a photographer hired to catch them not looking. My parents in the middle, my brother's family arranged like proof that someone else got it right, cousins, even the uncle who never shows. The same house I used to carry casserole into. I counted twice. 21. I didn't need to count the empty. I showed the photos to the girls because I was done pretending. Lily wrinkled her nose. Why weren't we there? Ava didn't ask. She stared a long time, then said, "We can celebrate different and still be real." She's 10, and sometimes she says things that should belong to older people. I told her she was wise and pretended I wasn't burning. I have learned that fury is a terrible interior decorator. It repaints every room you walk into. That night, after they fell asleep in a fort of quilts and sugar, I opened my laptop and all the tabs I'd trained to behave. My parents' power and water I'd been quietly paying since the spring they hit a rough patch. Off. The car insurance I'd covered 3 times because late fees were predatory. Canceled. My brother's 2 months of rent I fronted when the foundation of his plans shifted. Done. Streaming services, phone plans, still bundled from a lifetime ago. The internet I set up because auto pay is confusing. Click, click, click. I didn't send a manifesto. I didn't craft a lesson. I turned the faucet to off and let the quiet back up on their side of the wall. By morning, the family group chat was performing CPR on itself. A scroll of missed calls and new messages stacked like dominoes. Power's out. Did something happen? Can't make calls. Is the plan down? Internet? My brother's voicemail tried for casual, the way people do when their script depends on you not changing yours. Hey, Mom says the power's out. Water's weird. Dad says the internet's cut. Maybe your card expired. Check when you get a sec. The part that made me laugh wasn't the question. It was the certainty that, of course, I was still the infrastructure. Around noon, Mom texted me directly. We noticed payments stopped. What's going on? Something's wrong. It's still your responsibility to help us. We raised you. I stared at the sentence, we raised you, until the words lost their shapes. I thought about every time I'd lifted something heavy and called it love. I put the phone down. Not because I wanted to escalate. Because I finally understood that answering would be volunteering for another shift at a job that doesn't pay. The cabin held the quiet for me. Afternoon light moved across the pine floor like a clock sans numbers. The fire learned restraint. The girls led a plastic reindeer expedition behind the couch and came back triumphant with a lost mitten. I made cocoa. We ate misshapen cookies. The world did not end without their approval. At 9 p.m., a new notification appeared. Aunt Carol. She's the family's diplomat, the kind who knows where the bodies are buried because she brought flowers. Just saw the photos. I didn't realize you and the girls weren't there. I'm sorry. Are you okay? I told her the part that mattered, that this wasn't sudden, that I'd been funding the facade for so long they mistook me for drywall, that Ava and Lily saw the pictures too and drew their own conclusions. Kids do math faster than adults when it comes to love. Carol called an hour later. She didn't pitch a truce. She listened. Then she said, "They think you left because of photos, but the leaving started long before that, didn't it?" I said yes. She said, "They won't understand until something breaks." I didn't realize till then that I was the one who had finally broken the right thing. After the call, I scrolled the group chat again. My brother had posted a meme about people forgetting what family means, followed by a cousin's reheated critique. "She always thinks she's better." Then Mom, "If you're punishing us, that's not fair to the kids. Be an adult and talk." I locked the phone. The girls were asleep by the fire, cheeks pink, socks half off. Lily's sparkly shoes waited by the door, scuffed with new miles. I tucked the quilt under Ava's chin and listened to the lake outside hold its breath. Somewhere far away, a family posed for a second round of photos. Somewhere nearer, mine existed without an audience. In the morning, the messages multiplied, an anthill kicked, practical complaints dressed as questions, questions dressed as orders, orders dressed as love. I poured cereal into 2 bowls, while the forest did its quiet, holy work. I expected anger to come back while I waited for the kettle. Instead, certainty arrived and took its chair. If they could cut us out of Christmas like it was scheduling, they could live without the parts of my life they'd turned into a payment plan. When the kettle screamed, I turned off the flame. The cabin window had fogged into a pale oval. I drew 3 dots with my finger and realized they looked like the typing indicator that never says what you need it to. I wiped the glass clean. The phone buzzed again on the counter. I didn't look. Somewhere between breakfast and a snowball fight that wasn't very good because the snow was powder and refused to stick, I felt the story click into a new gear. I didn't know what would come next. I didn't know who would carry the shame and who would argue with it. But I knew this. I wasn't going to be the one to translate harm into palatable sentences anymore. If they wanted to understand, they would have to learn my language. Quiet, boundary, consequence. That afternoon, Aunt Carol texted once more. "I'm going to talk to them, not to make you come back, to make them see what they did." I typed "thank you" and added nothing else because for once, thank you was all that was required of me. As night fell, the lake went from gray to black, and the trees drew themselves taller against the sky. The girls picked their favorite mugs. Ava, the chipped blue one. Lily, the one with the snowman missing his carrot nose. I lined up their marshmallows like pearls. Outside, the wind practiced a song it would later sing to someone else. Inside, I understood that you can love people and still refuse to pay the toll for their comfort. My phone hummed once on the table beside the cocoa. This time I glanced. A new audio bubble sat in the chat, small as a landmine, shimmering with Mom's name. I didn't press play. Not yet. The girls were telling me about a fox they were sure they saw in the trees, and the story was better than any apology I could imagine. I put the phone face down, and the bubbles, somewhere, kept blooming and dying without me. By the 26th, the group chat had the panicked energy of a kitchen fire. Pre-dawn texts stacked on my lock screen like receipts no one wanted to read. Power still out. Why are calls dropping? Internet's down. Work emergency. Every ping tried to rehire me as their quiet problem solver, the role with no title and all the hours. I poured cereal. The girls argued gently over which spoon tastes colder. The cabin windows were steamed into soft circles, and the lake beyond them looked like glass someone forgot to finish. The phone kept jittering on the counter until it spun and bumped the sugar bowl. I let it. At 9:14 a.m., my brother's voicemail arrived, trying for breezy and landing on helpless. "Hey, Risa, Mom says the power's out and Dad can't get the router to... whatever. Maybe your card expired? Just check when you get a minute." He cleared his throat as if etiquette might reboot the internet. "Anyway, let me know." I didn't. We put on boots that squeaked against each other and walked the path around the lake. The girls collected sticks that were really wands, rocks that were really dragon eggs, pine cones that were definitely hats for woodland kings. Back at the cabin, we drank cocoa too sweet to be reasonable. I told them sweetness is sometimes a shield. Around noon, A message from Mom slid in like a verdict. We noticed the payment stopped. What's going on? Something's wrong. It's still your responsibility to help us. We raised you. The phrase pressed hard enough to leave a mark. We raised you, as if the bill were past due, as if love came itemized and I'd missed a payment. I typed nothing. Sometimes silence is the only sentence that doesn't get edited by other people's need. The chat chattered itself into a frenzy. A cousin posted a gif of a dumpster fire. Another cousin wrote family first, like a spell that could unspoil food. My brother added a line he must have practiced. Some people don't understand what family means. The italics did more work than the man. At 3 p.m., Aunt Carol called. She doesn't call unless the house is really on fire. I stepped out onto the porch. Cold air found the skin between my sleeve and glove like it had been looking. You okay? She asked. I am, I said, surprised to hear it be true. I'm sorry, she said. I looked at the Christmas photos again. Your mother keeps saying you chose not to come. I should have seen it. The way they worded everything. I think they left you out and then believed it after. I listened to the lake thinking about weather. They didn't plan to hurt me, I said. They planned to avoid discomfort. It ended up being the same thing. Carol exhaled. They think you left because of the pictures. But you left a long time ago, didn't you? At least the part of you that said yes to everything. Yes. The porch boards creaked. I turned off the part that apologized first. I'm going to talk to them, she said. Not to negotiate you back. To make them look at it without blinking. Thank you, I said, because sometimes gratitude is the only safe verb. Near dusk, the tone shifted. Mom sent a single voice memo into the chat. No caption. Just a small audio bubble pulsing like a heartbeat you don't trust. I stared at it for 10 minutes. The girls were building a card tower on the rug and threatening to switch to Jenga if the universe kept being rude. I pressed play. Her voice was softer at the edges, like fabric left in sunlight. I've been looking at the photos, she began, and I braced for the usual revision, deflection, the script where I am too much and not enough. Every time I look, my eyes go to the space where you and the girls should be. She paused. I could hear the kitchen clock in their house counting for her. I keep thinking about Ava's pinecone ornament from last year, about Lily crying when the dog knocked over the gingerbread house. We told ourselves we wanted a peaceful holiday. We said adults-only things to each other without saying them out loud. I thought you were strong enough not to need us. We mistook your strength for not needing anything. The word anything thinned on her tongue. I think we pushed you out and called it your choice. I sat down on the floor without meaning to. The card tower leaned toward me as if it were listening too. You've done more for us than we admitted, she said. Money, yes, but also, you carried weight and we applauded your independence because it asked so little of us. When you stopped, it felt like cruelty. It was just the end of our borrowing. A breath. Dishes clinked faintly, not her hands. Someone else moving in the background. I miss them. I miss you. I'm sorry. 3 minutes. No scripture. No moral algebra. No but. I listened again, then a third time, because something honest can sound like a trick when you've learned to survive on the opposite. The girls toppled their tower and whooped like tiny athletes. We're switching to Jenga, Ava announced. Lower center of gravity. Engineering queen, I said. And she grinned like a kid who has not become a lesson in someone else's mouth. I didn't respond to the memo. Not yet. I wanted her words to sit under their own light for a while. That night, Evan called from the city. He'd driven back to clear a few fires at work. His voice arrived with traffic noise and the echo of an elevator. How's the cabin? He asked. A sanctuary with questionable insulation, I said. Your rival. He laughed, then sobered. Any movement from your mom? She sent a voice memo, I said. No spin. It sounded like her before performance became the first language. Do you believe her? I believe she knows something she didn't know last week. I rubbed at the place the cold had found my wrist. I don't know what she'll do with it. Sometimes knowing is the whole miracle, he said. Sometimes it's the first 5 minutes of a longer shift. There was a faint pause, and then he said, quieter, I saw your dad today. I stood up without meaning to. Where? Hardware store. He didn't see me. He was in the aisle with space heaters, staring like they were a test. He looked... Evan searched for a word he wouldn't regret. Still. I pictured my father motionless in a fluorescent-lit river, current moving around him. The image didn't make me angry. It made me tired. Carol says he's pacing the living room, I said. Maybe he's pacing in public now. Do you want me to come back tonight? Evan asked. No, I said. Finish what you need to finish. We're okay here. The fox we didn't see is guarding us. He smiled into the line. Tell him I said thanks. I'll be there by noon tomorrow. When the girls were asleep, I sat by the fire with the phone in my hand. I scrolled past the memo to the earlier messages, the ones that assumed my labor would reroute itself on command. It felt like looking at a past version of myself from across the street and realizing you don't want to call her back. The chat went quiet after the memo, as if everyone were waiting to see whether apology meant refund. It didn't. At 11:37 p.m., a new text appeared from an unfamiliar tension. Dad, can we talk? Not as your parents. As two people who hurt each other and don't want to do it anymore. I read it twice, then a third time because my father had never asked to talk. He had waited for storms to pass and called that weather. The sentence held no tricks, no payment plan hidden under the porch. It didn't ask me to forget. It asked me to stand in the same room with the truth. I didn't answer. I put the phone on the coffee table, face up, and watched the fire process its own mistakes into heat and light. In the loft, Ava turned over in her sleep and murmured something about the fox. Lily's sparkly shoes waited at the door, catching the last of the embers in their cheap rhinestones. The cabin settled. Outside, the lake made a sound only winter understands. I knew the next part would require a steadier voice than the one I use for crisis. Not forgiveness, precision. Not surrender, terms. The memo had cracked the door. The text had put a foot in it. I fell asleep on the couch with my coat over my legs and my palm against the phone like a person cradling a small, warm animal they intend to release at dawn. I didn't sleep much that night. Every creak of the cabin sounded like a thought I wasn't ready to finish. The fire had gone out, leaving only the smell of wood and the whisper of melted wax. The phone on the coffee table glowed in the dark. My father's text still sitting there, a single sentence with more weight than any lecture he'd ever given me. Can we talk? Not as your parents, as two people who hurt each other and don't want to do it anymore. By morning, frost had drawn a lace of white on the window pane. The girls were still asleep, curled like commas under the blankets. I made coffee, stood by the window, and tried to decide whether I believed him. For a man like my father, talk had never meant listen. It meant waiting for his turn to be right. Still, I called him. He picked up before the first ring finished, like he'd been holding the phone. Risa? Yeah, I said quietly. It's me. There was a pause, not heavy, but fragile. I'm glad you called. I didn't answer that. Instead, I said, You said you wanted to talk. Go ahead. He took a breath, the kind you hear through the line when someone's rehearsing. I messed up. We all did. His voice sounded older than I remembered. Your mother and I, the Christmas plans weren't meant to exclude you. They were just easier without me, I finished for him. He didn't argue. We didn't plan anything cruel. Your brother offered to host, and we said yes. Then nobody mentioned your name. Nobody asked if you were coming. We just left the space empty and pretended that was neutral. That's not neutral, I said. That's absence disguised as peace. I know, he said softly. And I'm sorry. You were right to be angry. I didn't expect him to say that. My father doesn't apologize. He rearranges guilt until it looks like logistics. What changed? I asked. He hesitated. I've been reading Ava's blog. My grip on the phone tightened. Her what? The little writing thing her teacher set up. You sent the link to the family last year. I had. Once. No one had ever mentioned it. I assumed they ignored it, the way they ignored most of what came from me. I read her Christmas Eve post, he said, voice breaking halfway through. It was called, This Year It's Just Us. She wrote about the snow at the cabin, the cocoa, the games. Then at the end she said, I don't think Grandma and Grandpa like us anymore. Mommy says it's complicated, but I think it's just sad. I still love them, though. I hope they remember me. He went quiet. The line hummed with static. I cried, he said finally. I don't cry, Risa. You know that. But I did, because she's right. You didn't cut us off. We cut ourselves off and tried to make it sound noble. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Outside, a bird landed on the porch railing, shook the snow from its wings, and flew off again. A small, ordinary freedom. She misses you, I said. They both do. I know, he said. And you're a better mother than I ever gave you credit for. That sentence knocked something loose inside me. I wasn't ready for it, didn't know where to put it. We talked for almost an hour. For once, he didn't dominate the conversation. He asked questions, not about logistics or bills, but about me. How long had I been covering the payments? How I managed the girls, the job, the weight of everything. He listened, really listened, and when he didn't know what to say, he didn't fill the space with advice. I don't want a perfect ending, I told him. I just want the girls to know their family isn't conditional. He sighed. We can do better. We want to. Your mother and I talked last night. We'd like to start over. No crowds, no show, just us. New Year's Eve, dinner at home. You, the girls. Evan, if he wants to come. 5 people, not 21. I leaned against the counter. Not to make up for Christmas? No, he said quickly. Not to make up. To start something new. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no either. I'll think about it. Take your time, he said. Just thank you for calling. After we hung up, I stood there for a long moment, the silence in the cabin shifting from heavy to open. I didn't know if this was change or just a truce, but it was something. Later that afternoon, I was still debating what to tell the girls when someone knocked on the door. A knock you could feel through the floorboards, slow, uncertain, like a question. When I opened it, I froze. My brother stood there, hands jammed in his hoodie pockets, looking about 10 years younger and 10 pounds lighter. The wind had carved his face raw. In his arms were 2 wrapped gifts, one labeled Ava in neat block letters, the other Lily with a glittery heart sticker. He held them out like peace offerings. Hey, he said quietly. I crossed my arms. You drove here? Yeah, figured you wouldn't answer if I texted. Probably right. He gave a short, nervous laugh. I've been an idiot. Only recently noticing? Fair, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. I followed Mom and Dad's lead because it was easier, because if I didn't, I'd have to admit how messed up it was. I should have said something. I didn't. I'm sorry. Behind me, Ava peeked around the corner. Her eyes widened when she saw him. He crouched down, holding out her gift. Hey, kid. Missed you. She looked at me for permission. I nodded once. She walked over, took the box, and whispered, Thanks, Uncle Mike. Open it later, he said. It's not much. Lily appeared next, hair sticking up, holding her stuffed penguin like backup. He smiled. You too, Sparkles. He handed her the smaller box with the heart. She gasped softly. He stood again, eyes flicking to mine. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I wanted to start somewhere. For a moment, none of us spoke. Snow fell in slow, diagonal lines behind him, catching the light from the porch lamp. He shifted his weight. You still mad at me? Yes, I said. Then softer. But I'm listening. He nodded. That's better than I deserve. We stood there, awkward and human, until Ava's voice broke the quiet. You can come in if you want. He blinked, surprised. Yeah? Yeah, she said. We're making cocoa. I stepped aside. Wipe your shoes. He grinned a little, the first real one I'd seen in months, and kicked the snow from his boots. Inside, the air smelled like cinnamon and something mending itself. Lily tugged at his sleeve, insisting he sit by the fire. Ava handed him her favorite mug, the one with the chipped rim. He looked at it like it was a crown. When Evan arrived later that evening, he found us all on the floor, half playing a board game, half telling stories. He leaned in the doorway, watching, and mouthed to me, You okay? I nodded, not healed, not yet, but okay. That night, after everyone went to bed, even my brother passed out on the couch under a blanket that smelled like pine and forgiveness. I sat by the dying fire and stared at my phone. Dad had texted again. We'll have dinner ready at 7 on New Year's Eve. No pressure. Just come if you can. Outside, the wind pushed snow across the porch in soft, sweeping patterns. I thought about Ava's blog, about the sentence that cracked my father open. I still love them, though. I hope they remember me. I whispered it once to the dark, as if saying it could change its ending. For the first time, maybe it already had. New Year's Eve arrived before I decided what to do. The girls packed and unpacked small bags all week. Books, glitter shoes, their favorite mugs, like they were rehearsing hope. Ava kept asking if maybe meant probably, and Lily had already chosen her sparkly headband just in case. Every time I said we were thinking about it, their eyes lit like it was already a yes. Evan didn't push me. He just helped me fold the clothes I pretended not to need and said, If you're ready, I'll drive. At 4 in the afternoon, we left the cabin. The roads were quiet, edges frosted silver. My chest felt tight, not from anger anymore, but from the weight of trying to believe that change might hold. When we pulled up to my parents' house, it took me a second to recognize it. The porch was bare except for a single green wreath and a soft yellow light over the door. No inflatable snowmen. No choreographed cheer. Just simple, honest. They were waiting in the doorway. Not smiling, not performing, just waiting. My father stepped aside. My mother gave a small wave. No one reached for hugs, which somehow was better. Inside, the house looked smaller. Or maybe I finally saw its real size without all the noise. The dining table was set for 5. Just 5. No 21 matching plates, no garland swallowing the walls. The only decorations left were the girls' old ornaments still hanging on the tree. Ava's glitter pine cone, Lily's crooked snowman with one eye missing. Everything else had been packed away. My brother was in the kitchen, rinsing dishes like a man trying to earn his way back into something. He looked up when we walked in and smiled. A quiet, careful smile that didn't ask for forgiveness, but offered respect. The girls stood frozen for a moment, shy. Then my mom crouched and whispered, "I missed you too." Her voice cracked on the mist. She pointed to 2 small boxes on the chairs in the living room. "Those are for you." Lily tore into hers first. A tiny silver necklace with her name engraved in loopy cursive. "It's spelled right," she squealed. Ava's was a leather-bound journal with a matching pen tied together with a ribbon. "For your stories," my mom said. "I promise to read every one if you'll let me." We sat down at the table. The food was simple. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. For a while, the only sounds were forks and glasses and the faint hum of the heater. Then my mother took a deep breath. "We want to say this properly," she began. "We were wrong." Her hands trembled slightly as she spoke. "We spent years trying to mold you into someone easier to understand. And when you didn't fit that shape, we decided it was you who broke it. We told ourselves you were distant, but really, you were exhausted." My father set down his fork. "I didn't know how to be proud of you without feeling like I was losing control," he said. His voice was gravelly, uneven. "When I read what Ava wrote, it broke something in me. She still loves us, Risa, after everything. And we didn't deserve that love." Ava's eyes went wide. Lily stared at the table, twirling her necklace. "We can't undo what we did," he continued, "but we can start doing better, if you'll let us." I didn't speak right away. I wanted to see if they'd flinch under silence the way I used to. They didn't. Finally, I asked, "Why now? Why not years ago?" My mother didn't hesitate. "Because you finally left," she said. "And when the house went quiet, we realized all the things you'd been holding up for us. When you stopped, everything collapsed, and we had to face what we'd built." No one cried, no big sweeping music, just the sound of truth landing between us and deciding to stay. We moved to the living room afterward. My father turned on an old comedy Ava loved. My brother passed out blankets like a peace treaty. Lily curled against my mom's arm, giggling at the screen. Ava sat cross-legged on the rug, scribbling something in her new journal. Evan leaned close to me and whispered, "They're trying, Risa, really trying." "I know," I whispered back. "It's strange." He smiled. "Strange is good." Just before midnight, my dad went outside and returned with an extra blanket for me. No words, just a small, simple gesture that said what language often ruins. My mom handed Ava a sparkler and told her to write her name in the air. The 5 of us stepped onto the porch as the first fireworks cracked open the sky. Red, gold, silver. Lily squealed at each one like it was performing just for her. Ava traced glowing letters until her sparkler hissed out, smoke curling around her face. My brother stood beside me, hands deep in his jacket pockets. "This doesn't fix everything," he said quietly, "but I'm glad you didn't let us off easy." I looked at him, then at the house glowing softly behind us. "Neither am I." He nodded, half a smile curling. "You always were the stubborn one." "I learned from the best," I said, glancing toward the door where our parents watched the girls. When the fireworks ended, the night fell still again. No applause, no speeches, just a handful of people finally understanding what quiet was supposed to feel like. Before bed, I tucked the girls onto the pull-out couch. Lily was already half asleep, her necklace glinting in the lamplight. Ava blinked up at me, smiling. "Mom," she whispered, "this feels like real Christmas. Just late, right?" "Yeah," I said, smoothing her hair. "Just a little late." In the next room, my parents talked in low voices. No tension, just the small sound of people learning a new language after years of silence. When I finally lay down on the couch, I could still hear the echo of fireworks somewhere over the trees. Evan's hand found mine under the blanket. I thought of the Christmas we'd missed and the one we'd found instead. Sometimes, I realized, forgiveness doesn't arrive wrapped in ribbons. Sometimes it just shows up quietly, wearing last year's ornaments, and asks if you're still cold. New Year's morning woke the house in slow motion. Pale winter light pooled through the curtains, and for a moment, I didn't know where I was. Then I saw Ava's journal on the coffee table, a half-eaten cookie beside it, and Lily's necklace glittering on the arm of the couch. The air smelled like coffee and toast. My father's humming came from the kitchen, low, tuneless, content. My mother had draped a blanket over my legs at some point in the night. There was no grand reconciliation speech waiting, no tension thick enough to slice through. Just quiet, real quiet. The girls were still asleep on the pull-out couch, tangled in blankets and dreams. Their smiles came easy, even in sleep. Maybe they already knew something had shifted, even if they couldn't name it. When I walked into the kitchen, my dad looked up from the coffee pot and gave me a small, unsure smile. "Morning," he said. "Morning." He slid a mug towards me. "It's strong. I don't make the fancy stuff." "That's okay," I said, taking a sip. "It's perfect." We didn't talk about the past. We didn't need to. The silence between us didn't ache the way it used to. It just breathed. By noon, relatives started to trickle in for the family's traditional New Year's lunch, the one I hadn't been invited to in years. I braced myself for the usual, small talk, pity, gossip, disguised as hospitality. But when they came through the door, something was different. There were awkward smiles at first, sure, a few lingering glances that said, "You're really here." But the energy was gentler, slower, almost reverent. Lily ran to show my mom's sister her necklace. Ava was already curled up on the rug with my cousin's daughter, comparing pens and writing in her new journal. The house buzzed with life again, but it didn't feel like noise. It felt like warmth finding its shape. Then it happened. Jeremy, my loudmouth cousin, walked into the kitchen, plate in hand, and said with his usual lack of timing, "Hey, weren't you the one not invited to Christmas?" The room froze. Someone dropped a spoon into the sink with a sharp clang. I felt every eye turn toward me. Before I could open my mouth, my father spoke. "Barbara and the girls weren't there because we made a mistake," he said evenly. "A really foolish one." Jeremy blinked, unprepared for honesty. My dad continued, "We let pride and convenience get in the way of family. We hurt them, and we regret it." My mother stepped forward, resting a hand on the counter. "We thought we were protecting peace," she said softly, "but all we did was break it." For the first time in my life, I watched my parents stand in their own mess without asking anyone to clean it up. No deflection, no tears, just ownership. The room shifted. You could feel it, like the air exhaled. My brother's wife, who had stayed silent through most of December, walked over to me and said quietly, "I should have said something sooner." I knew it was wrong, but I didn't want to pick sides. "You just did," I said gently. She nodded, eyes shining. From the living room, I heard Lily's laughter, bright, unguarded. My mother joined her on the floor, helping her and the younger cousins build a puzzle. Ava sat cross-legged near the window, reading aloud something she'd written to a small circle of kids who listened like it was gospel. And there, amid all the noise, I realized the house didn't feel haunted anymore. It felt full. Not of perfection, but of people finally trying. When we left later that evening, the sun had already started its slow descent, bleeding orange through the bare trees. The girls climbed into the back seat with leftover cupcakes and sleep-heavy smiles. Evan started the car. My mother came out onto the porch, wrapped in a shawl, and waved. She didn't shout anything across the driveway. She just waved, small and steady. Back home, the girls carried their gifts inside like relics. Lily placed her necklace on her nightstand, whispering that it needed moonlight to stay shiny. Ava sat on her bed, writing again. I asked what she was working on. "Just a story," she said, smiling, "about how sometimes the good part comes at the end." I kissed her forehead. "That sounds about right." Around 9, a message buzzed on my phone. From Mom. "We boxed up the Christmas gifts. They're yours whenever you want them." I looked at it for a long time, then typed back, "The girls got what they needed, and I did too." I set the phone down, turned off the lamp, and sat in the stillness. No weight pressing on my chest, no invisible debt waiting to be paid, just peace. unremarkable, absolute peace. Out in the hallway, Ava's laughter drifted through the half-open door as she read something aloud to Lily. Their voices overlapped, tangled in joy. For years, I thought peace would come when they finally said sorry. But peace, it turned out, was quieter than that. It was the sound of my daughters laughing in a house that finally felt safe. It wasn't the Christmas we planned, it was the one we earned. Sometimes the good stuff comes late, but it still counts.